Hey everybody, Peggy Hall back with you from thehealthyamerican.org. This is a very special premiere live stream. What that means is you are able to watch and comment with other people in the chat room as this is airing. I have my guest today, a very special healthy American, Larry Cappetto. Larry and I met in the very, very early days of all the hogwash. And we're going to hear all about Larry's story. He is an independent filmmaker. He has been specializing in covering stories of veterans for many years. So on this very special Memorial Day, there is no other person that you should be hearing from other than Larry Cappetto. Larry, welcome to the show. So great to see you again. We've done some interviews in the past.
It's so good to be back, Peggy, and I'm waiting for the day when I can give you a high five, but until then, Zoom, thank you, Zoom.
That's right. We're going to share those healthy hugs in person. And you even penned a song for me in the early days. You made a video about what I was doing at the Healthy American. But I want this interview to be all about you, Larry. Before we went live, you said that people have called you the face of like the Renaissance man and so forth. Tell me that story. Who are you as a filmmaker? What do you specialize in? And why are veterans close to your heart?
Oh, Peggy, how much time do you have? I'm kidding. That's a loaded question. First of all, it's just great to be with you again. And, thank you for thinking of me. I tell the news media a lot that Veterans Day is every day for me. We commemorate it on November 11th up in Canada. They call it Remembrance Day. We have Memorial Day coming up, probably the second biggest so-called, event, a holiday for veterans. And it used to be called Decoration Day years ago, and now it's become called Memorial Day. But this is a chance for us to honor our veterans that have fought for our country, that have died for our country, that are serving our country right now. And Peggy, I've been doing this project for 20 years. My father served in the Korean War in the United States Army. He died when I was 10 years old, so I never got to talk to him about his service. My uncle served with General Patton's Third Army in World War II. Again, he passed away before I ever had that opportunity to really ask him about World War II. When I saw Saving Private Ryan in 1997, 1998, I was stunned by the first 20 minutes of that movie because it was such a depiction of what maybe it would have been like to have been on a landing on an enemy beach, under machine gun fire. And since then, that kind of shook something loose in me. So my focus became D-Day, Omaha Beach, France, 1944, June 6, 1944. And I live in Grand Junction, Colorado, and I started my work at the end of 2002 into 2003, so it's been almost 20 years. And I thought, when I saw that beginning of that movie, Peggy, I thought, what kind of mindset would have taken to do that? 18, 19 years old, what kind of mindset would it take to land on a beach under enemy fire? And so I thought, I don't want just actors, and I don't want anybody narrating my documentary. So two things came to mind when I decided to start this work almost 20 years ago. Two things came to mind, Peggy. Number one, the stories are going to come from the source. Has to come from the veterans, and there's no narration in my films. I love narration, but this is coming from the source. Number two, the day's going to come when I'm going to share this with our younger generation. And Peggy, that's come to pass. I've spoken to over 100,000 students in schools across our country. I've traveled almost 750,000 miles, if not more, across North America in 20 years, interviewing, if you can imagine, sitting down with 1,000 military veterans that have served. And when I go into schools, Peggy, I ask the kids, how many of you have somebody in your family that has served or is serving in the military? And almost everybody raises their hand. So that kind of personalizes the message and what I'm doing. But as far as who I am, it's like, why me, Lord? Every time I listen to an interview from a veteran, I'm just humbled, Peggy. I'm humbled, and I ask God, why? And here's the best answer I have. I provide a non-threatening environment where they open up and they talk to me. Secondly, they can tell that I care, and I'm listening to their stories. We've all talked to people that aren't tuned in, and it's like, they're not tuned in on the phone or in person. I'm not like that. When I turn that camera on, that's the first time it's on, and that's when they start talking to me. They're my eyes and my ears to a doorway of the past. I wonder how many people in your audience right now, and those that watch my videos, have somebody in their family that has served or is currently serving their country. Yeah, you raised your hand. Me too. So it affects all of us. Somewhere in our lives, a veteran has been there, you know. And I said this years ago. I said, I am here today because you were there. The veterans were there. And oh my gosh, Peggy, I'm preaching to the choir with you. We just went through 2 years of hell, and it's still going. We're seeing the residual effects of our freedoms being under attack. And I realized just recently that, you know, we're fighting for the same freedoms in our country that our veterans fought for on a foreign land.
Yes, that's
And
right.
it's because people haven't stood up and defended their freedoms that we got into the mess we have. But thank God there's a lot of people waking up. But anyways, Memorial Day is a day to honor those that have died for this country. And, you know, I'll tell you what, you know, anytime a sports athlete would take a knee during the national anthem, I'll slap him beside the head. You know, I have people all the time commenting on my videos that, you know, these people need to be watching these videos. I had someone the other day said, you need to send this video to Joe Biden. Yes,
Well, Larry,
yes.
tell us where people can find your videos. Where are you broadcasting now? You were doing God's Underground, and I need to let the audience know that Larry he could also wear the t-shirt that says hashtag never have, never will. He is a patriot. He has not complied one iota. He has taken the hits like many of us have because he has not given his freedom away. I will say that our freedoms have never been taken from us. People give them away. I've been living in liberty. I've been making sacrifices. They're nothing compared to what my dad went through. He was in the Korean War. He actually served on the front lines. He was at Punch Bowl, I think that was the name of it. He was there when at the seminal, you know, bombing of Seoul, Korea. He has pictures of it from his camera, or whoever's camera. There are photos, black and white photos we still have among his memorabilia. And he never wanted to talk about it, what he saw. He fought with different Turkish regiments, and he's got stories and stories, Larry. But where can people find your videos now?
Well, my website, larrycappetto.com, and I'll put it on the screen. That's the hub for everything I do: music, videos, preaching, teaching, you know, videos, all kinds of things. So it's the hub. But I have a YouTube channel that has had, I think, 8 million views now over the years because of my documentaries. Peggy, I have 12 films in a documentary series called Lest They Be Forgotten. And that's an afterthought. If we don't remember, we're going to forget. And an act of remembrance is an act of honor. So I have 12 films. Most of them are World War II, though. That's my first love of all the work that I've done. Then the Korean War, they call it the Forgotten War. God forbid. Your dad, my dad. The Vietnam War, one of my most watched videos is Vietnam Remembered. It just struck a chord with our generation. I have young and old, you know, all kinds of people watching my films. Voices of History is my YouTube channel. If you type Voices of History, it should come up and you should see my name somewhere in there, Larry Cappetto or whatever. But that's how people find out about my work. But Peggy, I got to say this. My work, I've been doing this 20 years. When I started my work, I almost laugh now. I had so much equipment. I started my work in Phoenix, Arizona. So I crisscrossed the valley. I got smart over the years. I thought, I need to plan. I go point A, B, C. I would go from Apache Junction to Sun City to Gilbert and Chandler, all the way up to Scottsdale. And I was not doing it right. But now I got smarter. But I had so much stuff. But Peggy, I never thought when I started my work almost 20 years ago that the day would come where I would be looking up obituaries of all my veterans that have died. My ranks have grown thin over the years. It's become very bittersweet. This is the personal side of what I do, Peggy. It's very emotional. I get attached to all these veterans, and I'm humbled because normally a combat veteran won't talk to somebody but another combat veteran.
How do you find them, Larry? And tell us a couple of the stories, some memorable ones.
Yeah, first of all, I thank God. I want to give right now, Peggy, I give God all the glory for what I've done and what I do. People say, Larry, what you're doing is great. And I don't see it like that. I think what I'm doing is important. And you know what? Okay, here's how I say it. Every page of history lost these stories that I've recorded become more precious and valuable. When I go into an area, Peggy, and I started with my pockets with no money in them, and I went to Arizona, and I did that twice, and then I came to Colorado and Utah. I started my work driving in a car, and then I started flying. I contact the local newspaper. February 9th, 2003, I came home from church, and I saw the red light on an old answering machine blinking, and I knew I had a message. I went over to retrieve that message, and here's what I heard verbatim. My name is Jack Lindenman. I was in France with the 35th Division, and I landed on Omaha Beach. And he started to cry. And I thought, what have I tapped into here? Jack was the first of hundreds of calls from veterans in their late 70s, early 80s at the time, wanting to tell their stories. Most of them never told their stories. It's almost comical. A lot of times when the veteran starts talking with me on the other end of the camera, then they don't shut up till their ending days. It's like something came loose. But I find that over and over again. But I would contact the paper, and I contacted the Mesa Valley Tribune, which serves Scottsdale. It's called the East Valley Tribune. I contacted an editor who referred me to a columnist named Gary Nelson, and he wrote a story. He said, Filmmaker looking for D-Day vets. And there was my focus. I honed on D-Day, Omaha
I'm
Beach.
getting chills.
I went to France twice in 2004 and once in 2003. I walked that's hallowed ground, Peggy. This is where Hitler was brought down, on the shores of Normandy, the Western invasion of France. It was the beginning of the end. We all know the story, D-Day, okay. And it was, and we went in there. And Peggy, in my travels, I got to share this. I interviewed 20 Holocaust survivors that survived the Holocaust. And you talk about chills. I get chills right now because these were stories from people who survived the darkest period in our history. And they came out with a great attitude, with a winning attitude. You want to talk about freedom. You ask a Holocaust survivor what freedom means. And I'll tell you what, when I go into schools and I ask the teenagers, what does freedom mean to you? Here's what I get. I get a blank stare and a tilt head. You know why? Because they were born in a free country. They don't know what freedom is. And I challenge them with that thought. And after my school programs, Peggy, I see kids lining up for 45 minutes to an hour to shake the hand of an 85 or 90-year-old World War II veteran, to cry on their shoulders uncontrollably because they had no idea why they were free. And people in their own families had served in the military and they had no idea. So my work brings that message to us that heralds the banner of freedom. You talk about the universal banner of freedom, the cross of Jesus, and our flag is right there because it represents freedom. And our freedom, Peggy, as you know, is in Christ Jesus. And so what are we doing today? We're fighting for our freedoms. Why? Because the devil hates freedom. You know, our Constitution was written to protect us from government. One of the few that was written to protect the people, we the people. Most constitutions are written to allow government intervention and control, and I don't want to get off on that. But to get back to the editors, I contact the local newspapers. They run a story. I come to town, and the veterans start calling. Peggy, they call. Hundreds and hundreds of them have called over the years. I have never once asked a veteran, can I interview you? They've come to me, Peggy. They've come to me, and now they're in heaven, and we're going to have a great reunion in heaven soon of all these veterans that have gone before us. And every one of them, Peggy, is a hero to me. Not one of them has ever called themselves a hero. Think about that.
Wow. That's amazing, Larry. In the write-up that there have been write-ups about you and what you do, and one writer said that Memorial Day, Memorial Day for you is the most important day of the year. And that you are the champion celebrating it. You're telling these stories. You know, Larry, I have a personal connection actually to a World War II vet who just recently passed on to eternal glory. The father of my film editor, my video editor, Emma, and Fred has been a fixture for the last couple of years, going to all of our events at the Board of Supervisor meetings. He stands up and tells these, I call them public serpents. Not all of them are, but those that are, you know, slithering and slimy and trying to take these, you know, stand between us and our freedom. And Fred would get up there, 96 years old. He would get up there and tell them his story. And out of the thousands of individuals over the many months that would go and speak in front of the board, that was the only time I saw the Board of Supervisors give a person respect. They called him sir, they thanked him for his service, they thanked him for his testimony in front of the board. And so even in a contentious situation where emotions were high and we marched before that board, week after week, he was there. He would wait for hours in the sun, because that's part of the public servant's tactics, is to keep us waiting. And he was like a rock star. Everybody would come around him and want to have photos with him and sit with him. And his mind was sharp. He just came to the end of his days at the very respectable age of 96. And it has made such an impression on people. So just knowing one veteran like that very close in my life, I can't imagine the impact of the many, many stories that you've received. Anything you'd like to share in particular that for this Memorial Day? A story or a person? I know there's so many. How do you choose?
Yeah. Peggy, my heart is so full with our veterans. And I'll tell you what, people listen to me, they think I'm Steven Spielberg flying around the country, got all this money, all this. The only difference between me and Ken Burns, by the way, is $20 million. I mean, Ken Burns and I, people would come up to me and say, oh, you know, Ken Burns and Tom Hanks and Clint Eastwood and all these names. I thought, what? It's like they're stealing your thunder, Larry. Tom Hanks hasn't called me yet. But anyways, that's kind of flattering. But Peggy, my heart's full. My heart's full. I've been very fortunate. This is not a commercial venture. This is a labor of love. You know, of course, I have found some sponsors over the years, but not like you think. I've had people point their bony fingers into my face and say, Larry, you need to ask for money. I don't operate like that. I don't want to operate like that, because that's not what this is all about. And you can hear my heart right now. But you know, I interviewed a World War I veteran, only one, in South Florida in 2005. I was interviewing for my third film, The Battle of Iwo Jima, at that time. I find Homer Anderson, 107 years old, in 2005. Homer was in the United States Army, fought for this country. I have a little clip of him on my YouTube channel. So I've interviewed a World War I. Can you imagine if we had Civil War stories, how valuable those would be? Oh my gosh. And you know, it's kind of like with what's happened the last 2 years. There's a remnant. There's people that get it. Same thing with history. Same thing with history. History is best learned by those who were there. History is best learned, the teachers tell me that, by those who were there. What did I do? I went to the source. I got the stories. I've interviewed hundreds of World War II veterans. One of the most significant stories out of there that comes to mind is I interviewed a Catholic priest who they call him Father Bradley. Father Bradley served on Iwo Jima, where we raised the flag. If you know your history, the famous flag raising, well, there were actually 2 flag raisings. Here's a point for you, that people who might not know. There were 2 flag raisings. The famous iconic photo we have of Iwo Jima, that was the second flag raising. They took down the first flag. I have an interview with the man who took the flag from the ship to the shore, and they hung it, put it up. But there was a first flag raising, a smaller flag, not as famous because of the picture. I interviewed the last surviving flag raiser of Iwo Jima. His name's Chuck Lindbergh, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in 2005. And Chuck was bitter all his life because they never got the attention, you know, and I don't blame him to a point. But so there was 2 flag raisings. But Father Bradley served on Iwo Jima. He became a Monsignor. But he has a tremendous story. He's the most charismatic priest I've ever known. He's just 91 years old, just, you know, and I got his last mass on video. But he died several months after I interviewed him. But his story is significant because I've always been intrigued with the spiritual side of combat, Peggy. You know what dying soldiers and Marines and Navy men and anybody dying in war or mortally wounded, you know what they call? You know what they say? They call for? They call for their mamas, or they call for God. They call for their mamas or God. I interviewed a Navy corpsman. The Navy corpsman is attached to the 5th Marine Division in World War II. His name's Greg Emery. He's passed on now too. But I asked him, how do they die in the battlefield, Greg? I said, they called him Doc Emery. I said, how do they die in the battlefield? He said, some die violently and some die peacefully, you know? And I just recently did an interview, I recently posted an interview I did with a man who served in Vietnam with Graves registration, a story that you'll never hear. His name is Gene Kelm. It's on my Voices of History channel. People need to watch it. Gene identified the bodies of those that were killed in Vietnam, or the body parts, they identified him. And he tells with tears in his eyes, Peggy, the honor and the respect they had. And tears coming out of his eyes, he said not one person went home and they had a service for them and they weren't identified. Everybody was identified. I interviewed a man in Las Cruces, New Mexico. His name's Frank Clark. Frank served in the United States Marine Corps, and my Marines are gung-ho to the end. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Hoorah. Okay. Frank Clark said, Larry, I don't have a story. I'm in Las Cruces. I'm interviewing him. He's one of the guys that I'm going to interview. He's like 85 at the time. And I said, Frank, you don't have a story. What did you do in the Marines? He said, I was a clerk typist. I said, okay, Frank, what did you type? Peggy, Frank typed the telegrams back home to the families of the young men that were killed on Iwo Jima. And he quoted verbatim to me what those telegrams said. You know, the President of the United States regrets to inform you that your son was killed in action, da-da-da. Powerful story. Powerful story. You know, I interviewed a man named Lloyd Lewis. Lloyd lost his twin brother on Iwo Jima. There was an explosion, and when he woke up, there was blood coming out of his eyes and ears and his nose, and he thought he was dead. And when he came to his senses, he was a twin. Boyd was a twin. Lloyd and Boyd Lewis were twins. They were 17 years old. When he came to, he saw a helmet lying in the distance. He went and he picked up the helmet and he picked up the head of his brother. Oh. And then he told the story, Peggy, of how he he picked up the piece of his brother, put him in a poncho, went to the aid station, had some help, and he buried his brother in Iwo Jima. 17 years old, he lost his brother. I've not ever asked a veteran, Peggy, a combat veteran, did you kill somebody? I've never asked that question, but a fifth grader will ask that, but you can imagine the stories I've heard. Yeah. And Lloyd's stories is one of my most stunning stories. I remember pulling over the side of the road after hearing his story. It was so powerful. And I can go on and on with the stories, but you know, I have no favorites. It's like God, he has no favorites. You know, he's no respecter of persons when it comes to war. Peggy, without having been in combat, I can tell you what war looks like, what it smells like, what it sounds like, what it tastes like, and what it feels like, because of the stories that I've heard. And I'm telling you what, it's been an incredible journey, and I you know, it's amazing because a lot of these veterans, especially the Vietnam veterans, they didn't talk for many, many years because of the way they were treated when they came home. People spit on them. They called them baby killers. They threw trash on them. They threw garbage at them. They were ashamed to wear their uniforms home. And we're still dealing with that today in our country. And if we've learned anything from Vietnam, it's how to welcome our veterans home. I want to mention one more thing about the Vietnam veterans, is a lot of them suffered with post-traumatic stress disorders, PTSD. A lot of them have died from Agent Orange and the exposure to the things over in Vietnam. But if you ever see a veteran, Memorial Day coming up, I am compelled. Jesus says we need to be compelled to go into the highways and byways. Peggy, I'm compelled. If I see that hat, if I know that they're a veteran, and shame on me if I don't do it. When I was traveling in airports, I haven't done it since you know what. Yeah. But I would see the hats, I would go over there, and if I ever missed one, it would crush my heart. But I challenge those watching this, thank our veterans. We owe them a debt, just like with Jesus and what Jesus did. We owe them a debt we can't repay. And the Bible says to give honor to whom honor's due. Mm-hmm. Folks, Memorial Day is Monday. Go out to your cemetery, honor those, put a flag on a grave, go to your loved one, maybe you haven't talked to in years. And you know, and same thing with Veterans Day. But my challenge to people watching is ask your loved one what they did. It may seem insignificant to them, but there's a healing process, I've seen it, that starts when you talk, especially if you went through combat. There's a healing process. I've had veterans tell me that it's like a weight was lifted off their shoulders after they talked to me. I was called a psychiatrist with a camera once. I thought, oh my gosh, you know.
Oh, I like that, Larry.
A psychiatrist with a camera. But the greatest endearment I got was from a Jewish rabbi in Texas. He found out about my work. This is like 10, 12 years ago. I did a lot of work in the Dallas area. And he saw me as a ministry. He said, Larry, and this is stuck, you're a church without walls. And I thought, praise the Lord. I received that. And so that's my story. Yeah, that's my story in a nutshell. I could talk for hours. I'm going to let you kind of start closing this, but what an honor to be here and to honor our veterans. And I can't thank them enough, you know. Yeah. And I play taps now with a bugle to honor veterans in death too, just like I've honored them in life. And I love them. I love them.
Such a wonderful story, Larry. For many people, Memorial Day is just another 3-day weekend, time to, go to the beach or kick off the summer, have the barbecues. So I love that you said go to a cemetery, place a flag, thank another thing you said was thank a military member. And then you said reach out to somebody in your family,
Yeah.
listen to those stories. Those are all, you know me, I'm all a person of action, and I love to have solutions and action steps and how-tos, and you've given that to us. What I would like to talk about a little, Larry, is kind of bringing this full circle. You're one of the very few men, especially in the beginning of all of this, and you know how to couch your words because you've been thrown off YouTube before, your main channel. I aired that video that you did where you just talked to people outside on the streets of were you in Grand Junction or
Mm-hmm.
something? And you said, you're outside. Why do you have this on your face? And it was an amazing interview. It still lives on for anybody who's interested over at peggyhall.tv. It's probably on BitChute. It gave me a strike on YouTube. We had to take it down because you were simply having people give their opinion. Some of them said, oh, I didn't even know I had it on. Somebody else said, oh, it keeps me warm. Someone else, it was amazing, Larry. You've been bringing, you're really a documentarian, you're really a documentary filmmaker. And these videos that you've done over these last couple of years that you've posted, they've been taken down, you had to go private. That's exactly what we all are going through. But I want everyone who's listening to know that Larry has been on the front lines. He's been sending letters, he takes action. He's not someone to complain. He picks up his camera, he is filming what's going on. It's really like an archive as well. And I can see now why, Larry, you were so vehement, as was I, but your reasons go so deep because of your connection to the veterans. You know what, can you imagine one of these veterans that have now gone on living through this, going through this, agreeing with this? Let me ask you, what do you think about the military requiring these service members to become a human pincushion, as I call it? That's my code word.
Peggy, what a dark moment for our country and the things that are going on. And by the way, I don't acknowledge the current administration in Washington. That guy's an imposter. He's a jackal. It's brought out in the Bible. I'm not going to go preaching on that. And those aren't being bounced off of YouTube words. But folks, it's so wrong. Peggy, the Bible, here's the thing. The devil is a deceiver. And Hitler was a deceiver. Hitler conditioned the people of the day. He programmed them. He used propaganda. He did it right. But thank God, like one of my Holocaust survivors said, he made a few mistakes. But folks, it's the art of war. It's what's happening right now and how the country's been conditioned. But this is so wrong. This is so evil and so wrong. And Peggy, to answer your question, I don't agree with it. Law enforcement, first responders, healthcare people, the military, I would say, you better do your homework. You better do your research, And Jesus said that those who seek to save their lives are going to lose their lives. And those who seek to give up their lives for the sake of the gospel will save their lives. Peggy, what have we been doing? Not us. What have people been doing? What's that called? It's called fear. Fear's a motivator. That's what Hitler did. And to what? To save your lives. I'm not afraid to die. Peggy's not afraid to die. But people are motivated by fear. So they're doing what they think they need to do. But it's so wrong. And Jesus was tempted by the devil. And one of the temptations was the devil says, if you bow down and worship me, I'll give you the kingdoms of the world. And what have people done? They bow down and worship the devil. Yeah. And it goes on and on. But Peggy, I am not in agreement. You said a long time ago that when you look at somebody with a mask, it harms your soul. I've never forgotten that. You said governors are not lawmakers. I've never forgotten that, Peggy. And you said that we are to behold his glory with an unveiled face. I haven't forgotten that, Peggy. So I am not in alliance with that. The government wants to forge their chains around us. Diplomacy exists, Peggy, to prolong a crisis.
Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that right now. Can you believe it, Larry? I guess I can, going 2 years or longer in, they're not going to let it go because that's, as you say, that's what evil does. And the end game is to pull everyone off the narrow path onto the wide path of destruction. And many there be who will go there. I've used that reference many times, and it has to do with following false teachers, following anyone who's false, who is the deceiver. So, friends, we need to stand strong. We need to open our eyes. We need to engage our powers of discernment, which means looking at something critically. There is a lot of truth that then there's what I mean to say is there are lies that are covered in a little bit of truth. And so on the outside, it's like a cupcake, and the frosting is the truth. And you're like, oh, well, that sounds good. Even people that are, there are those that are getting into the freedom movement, and you have to dig deeper. You have to see, what are their agendas? What are they doing? Are they honest? Are they sincere? Or are they deceivers? And there will be a little bit of truth, sometimes even a lot of truth, and then they'll deliver the punchline, which is to drive the narrative and the agenda further. So friends, you've got to be aware of that. I can count Larry as a person from the very beginning who was onto the hogwash. He has eyes to see. He has a heart for God. He is a person of discernment. And Larry, you're also a personal friend. And I know over the last couple of years, we've both been so busy with all of our projects and so forth. And let's do this again. We've done a couple of interviews in the past. Anybody who wants to see the interview where Larry interviewed me, it's one of my favorite interviews. You'll see his, again, when you're watching this, you'll see his editing skills because he has edited this video. But you'll see it over at PeggyHall.tv. There are videos that I cannot air on this channel. Yes, I have BitChute and Brighteon and all of those, but even that's not secure. Larry, I've had videos taken down off BitChute. I was censored for talking about one of the makers of the cooties cure, as I call it. I was reading off their website, and that got taken down. It was so devious on BitChute. It looked like the video was there, and when you clicked on it, a different video played. So I asked Emma, who uploads my videos, I said, I think you uploaded the wrong one. She said, oh, I'll do it again. And she uploaded the right one, and it deferred to a different video. It would not allow that video to play. And I don't know how or why, because I thought that it was just an automated system, but somehow that information did not make it past their censors. So friends, we're speaking the truth. We're going to continue to speak the truth, even with these code words. And I want to talk just for a second, Larry, and then I'll give you the floor to close out. Many people will ask me, Peggy, why are you on YouTube? And my answer is, why are you on YouTube? You're watching this video on YouTube, asking me why I'm on YouTube. I'm on YouTube because it's a search engine. Mm-hmm. BitChute and Facebook and Brighteon and Instagram, it doesn't reach as many people. So if I want to help someone with their religious exemption, and I make a video that says how to get your religious exemption or how to get medical care without discrimination, I can title my video, How to Get Medical Care Without Discrimination. And somebody typing that phrase into a search engine like Google, YouTube videos will pop up. So I want to reach as many people as possible. Larry, you mentioned you have 8 million views of your different films that you've made. YouTube remains a popular platform even with the censorship. Mm-hmm. I use those other platforms. I want to stay on YouTube. I feel that I'm outsmarting YouTube by using my code words, and I want to reach as many people as possible. So I always like to explain why when people ask, if the censorship is so bad, why are you here? Well, it's because you're here, and thousands of people are here, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, probably, who knows, hundreds of millions of people are on YouTube. So I'm glad that we're here, and I'm glad we're going to be airing this. You people that are watching this are seeing it on YouTube. And Larry, what would be your wrap up here on this Memorial Day? Any final words of reflection?
Yeah, before I do that, I'm going to do a plug for truck drivers. I've been out thanking truck drivers for several months. God put a love in my heart for truck drivers. You know why, people? Because without our truck drivers, everything in your home, including the house itself, your car, the gas that goes into your car, is because of a truck driver. We need to thank truck drivers. And I find a lot of them are veterans too. So that's a little project I've been working on. It's on my website. And I'm proud of this. I don't know if you've seen this, but I've been wearing a yellow Star of David. And you need to know the history of that. And people that know it understand it. But that's not to take away from what the Jews went through. But they were marked in World War II. They were marked. They were set aside. They couldn't go to the movie theaters. They couldn't go to the bathroom. They pulled them out of schools. They couldn't go to the park. And they were persecuted because they were Jews. Folks, we've been marked. I am proud to be unvaccinated. I am proud. When I see people that have been vaccinated pounding their chests and giving out prizes and just having this attitude that needs to adjust it, I wear this proudly. So this is my yellow Star of David too. Okay, that's my little thing I'm doing that works together. But Peggy, you said it. Everything, the reason why I'm such a patriot for Jesus is because of what he did and then what our veterans have done. I mean, come on. You know, how can we thank a veteran enough for what they've done for our country? You know, and even if you don't understand it, you need to learn to appreciate it, you know, what they've done. And that's my message to our younger generation. I thank God that I've had opportunities to talk to young people about our country, our freedoms, why we're free, why we have our freedoms. Then you look at our founding fathers and what they did for us and what they set up for us and the Constitution and the amendments and Bill of Rights and all that, Declaration of Independence. You so appreciate it. All that was founded in God. That's why the devil hates us. That's why Pearl Harbor was attacked in 1941, because of freedom. That's why the trade towers were attacked in 2001 in New York City, because of freedom. That's why what's happening today is under attack, because of freedom. They want to control us. And that's all this is. It's control, folks. So that gets back to our veterans. They fought. They died. The ultimate price was paid. On the altar of freedom. You know, Jesus says, you know, the greatest love you can give is to give up your life for your brethren. Folks, we've seen that. So I encourage you on this Memorial Day to let it become a very meaningful time for you. If you don't understand it, there's plenty of information out there. But Peggy, I'm grateful for the veterans that I've interviewed over the years. They're all heroes to me, like I said, and they would be rolling over in their graves if they saw what was happening today. I can't imagine one of them wearing a mask. In fact, I wrote a song called "Don't Dishonor Me." If I shall die, don't dishonor me, a couple of years ago, because we buried a dear loved one in my family, my adopted father in Denver, and everybody was wearing a mask except me. And I don't slight the family for that, but it was just the tyranny. So, but I saw the disrespect that they were giving to those that had served their country. I had one person say, "Well, I wear a mask 24 hours a day. You know, what's 15 minutes?" No. You wear a mask for 24 hours a day, take it off for 15 minutes.
Exactly.
You know, reverse, you know, boom. So, but anyway, I just close with the thought of let's honor our veterans. Help me, let's honor our veterans and thank them, and really with a sincere and a grateful heart, and realizing that our freedoms are in Jesus. Realize that everything we have is because of the blood of Jesus and Him dying on the cross and giving us eternal life, and that our hope in this world is because we have Him in the next world. And our families in heaven, the heavenly family is waiting us right now. They're watching us. They're the heavenly host, the hall of fame of faith. Everybody's watching what's going on right now. It's an exciting time. It's a very difficult time. We are living in perilous times. But I thank God for all the veterans that have given their lives, that have been wounded, that have been permanently disabled for life. I thank you all. And I just say, God bless you for it. And I salute you right now. And Peggy, thank you for this interview.
Thank you, Larry. Everybody, check out Larry's website. He'll have the information for you. And join me in my very next live stream. I'm here every afternoon starting at, well, check the description box because my hours may be changing. But I'm here every afternoon bringing you breaking news and Peggy to the rescue. And then check out my backup channel, which is Living Swell with Peggy Hall, where it's all about positivity and possibility for brighter days ahead. I know they're out there. See you soon, everybody.